Hello everyone, it's Kylie. Welcome to PaperDaisyJournals. I have another of those journals that I make where I've got the front cover and the back cover that are completely separate, and they're just held together with the two pieces of fabric, one on the front and one inside the journal. So this one, I'll start with the back. I've used some beautiful pieces of old fabric with a gorgeous piece of antique lace, and I've hand stitched that around to make the back cover. I've used two old mother of pearl buttons to adhere the fabric for the spine onto the back of the journal and also onto the front of the journal, and that is actually all I've used, as well as obviously the signature strings. So it's quite a nice sort of loose feel to the journal. On the front, I've got a beautiful piece of handmade lace, and I've hand stitched some fabric and trim and lace to the front, as well as a gorgeous old piece of trim, heart-shaped trim there, which I have threaded the closure through. That can actually be taken out, but I just thought that was a unique way of holding the closure ribbon onto the journal. Inside, I have covered the inside cover with some gorgeous old linen and some embroidery journal from 1961, which is French, and that is the fabric I've used as the inside part of the spine, and there's some more embroidery journal page on the back. So it is quite flexible, which I actually really like. I'm sort of enjoying that sort of relaxed feel about these particular styles of journal. Gorgeous, gorgeous antique lace stuck to a printed page from one of my kits, some wallpaper, a gorgeous pocket. I've sewn that onto a separate piece of old paper, and then I've just stuck that on. So you've got the hand stitched look, but without the stitching coming through onto the other side. So that's a handy hint if you don't like stitching onto a journal page, or if you bind your journal and then you decorate it afterwards. That's a good way of getting that stitched look, also machine stitched look, without actually doing it onto the page. At the top, some old ledger, and I've just made a little cute little tag, little cigarette card on a gorgeous document from 1898, and I just tore off a little piece from 1863 from another document and collaged that on there. Or that might actually be, no, that is a piece of document. A tag that I've put in as a flip down. I've just used fabric instead of washi tape, so I've glued fabric to the front of the tag and also to the back of the page that it's flipping down from. And I've got some fussy cut butterflies on there, and that's just a file folder shape. And underneath is a tag that I've collaged from old French document, some tea-stained dictionary and some wallpaper, and that just sits up there. And this is just clipped together with one of those tiny attaches to create sort of like a tuck spot. Beautiful old page there. I've just folded the side down to give it a bit of structure because these are quite delicate, and I've put some of that beautiful German paper tape on there with some trim. Another handmade tag, collage from original pieces. A pocket here again, I've hand stitched it onto some other paper, and I've just put a little piece of wallpaper on there. The tab is held on with a bulb pin and a gorgeous old vintage crystal bead that hangs out the side. a tag I've used as a flip out, and again I've just put some fabric, glued some fabric on the back of the page and on the tag to keep it on, and that's a gorgeous piece of rose wallpaper. Here I've used a tea-stained envelope, and it is a tuck spot, but I've used a brad to pin an old Victorian calling card inside the actual envelope, and then I've got a beautiful old doily with a hand-stitched rose as a tuck spot for another handmade tag on the back of that envelope. A Belgian telegram with some fabric just on the edge there. A printed piece of ephemera that's a tuck spot with some beautiful tatting along the edge. A folded down ledger as the center, and I've used a piece of ledger at the top with some wallpaper to add interest to that side. On this side I've got a little flip out, and that is a journaling tag that I've just pinned at the top there. Another hand stitched pocket. This is a beautiful old avocado dyed handkerchief. Just a little dramatic pause there for no reason. And two handmade and collaged tags in there, and this is sort of double, so you can put a tag in the back and then a little tag can sit in the front there, and that's the other side of that gorgeous telegram. Just used a little bit of fabric to put on the other side, the flap of the envelope, which is bound into the signature. A little feature at the top here, so I've got some washi tape, a beautiful piece of trim, and the way that's held on, I've just punched 2 holes, and I've threaded a little piece of trim through that and tied a little knot at the top. So I thought that was a nice little easy to do feature that doesn't really require any sewing. Another handmade tag just in a lace tuck spot, and I have hand stitched on a ruffle at the top there. I really like the loose feel of the hand stitching. Typically I use a sewing machine to do my ruffles, but lately I go through phases where I don't like my sewing machine because it's noisy. I'm obviously going through a little season of peace in my life, and yeah, so there's probably more hand stitching in this lot of journals that I've been making. A button I've used to add a little snippet of a doily there with some washi, and I've just stuck down the side of that page again to reinforce it and just stuck some lace on there. Another collaged tag, and this is in a belly band. I've used some old book page and I've just stuck on some avocado dyed sari trim, and I've just hand stitched a little snippet on the top there to give it an extra layer, but it's a loose sort of layer, it's not all stuck down. A little collage there, and some trim on the top of that page. So the second signature, bit of collaging at the top there, and just a tab I've stapled on, and I've just glued on a beautiful piece of trim there. That's a printed page from one of my kits. An old envelope with the original wax seal still on it, which is really cool. It will possibly flake off a bit, but I just thought that was fun. And that's an envelope, and I've just used some lace, so stuck it to the envelope on that side and to the page on the other side. Some more of that beautiful French fashion magazine, and I've just stuck some lace and German paper tape down the side. Fabric pocket with a lace pocket, so sort of some layers there, hand stitched. That's a gorgeous advertisement card with a gold shimmer, and that's just tucked into the front, and at the back is a collaged tag. Some of my favorite ledger from France, 1851. I love the fountain pen handwriting. I say calligraphy, but that's just how they wrote in those days. That's a printed piece of ephemera from one of my kits in a wallpaper pocket with some tatting lace trim. Here I've used a gorgeous doily. I was going to use that on the front cover, but sometimes things just don't work, but I still wanted to use it in the journal. So I've used a brad to adhere it to the page, and I've just glued that side of it, so it's actually turned into quite a large pocket. But what you could do is actually undo the brad and open this up and do some secret journaling underneath, and then put the brad back in, and yeah, I thought that was a little bit clever. There's a gorgeous ceramic heart button at the top there of a book page tag, and that's just in a wallpaper pocket with some lace stuck to the top on old music paper. Here in the center I've used some more of that avocado dyed handkerchief as the center, and I've stitched that on. I think I actually, no I didn't stitch, I've stitched that onto some paper underneath, and I've stuck it down but not in the middle, so it still has some movement, but it is a two-sided pocket. And that's just a collage tag, and oh gosh, look at that little trim at the top there, how sweet and delicate. So that's just tucked in there. A tag with a few collaged pieces. I've just zigzagged down the bottom there because it was lifting as I was putting it into the pocket, so that's a nice feature, and also a way of keeping all the bits and pieces nice and solid when it goes into a pocket. And some gorgeous old trim there. I've just made a little bow out of some trim, and I've hand stitched that on there, and the lace just falls down over the pocket, and that's probably my favorite little page there. Sorry about that construction sound. I'm trying really hard to film between them doing that and I'm nearly at the end of the journal, so I'm just going to keep going in the hope that there's not too much of it. It's a little bit frustrating. It's been going on for a year. A printed piece of ephemera on the back of that flip out, and I've just stuck that down with some lace, and that's the other side of that gorgeous old French ledger that I love, and that's a button tab, and I've just added some lace and some of that gorgeous sari trim. Here I have used the sewing machine, and I've just stitched on some of that really gorgeous pink trim that looks really delicate. And here I have a pocket. I've used the machine to stitch that onto some cardstock, and I've just popped in a little piece of wallpaper there and some wallpaper at the top, and that's a printed page with some more of that gorgeous delicate little trim there. And that is the end of that journal. And thank you so much for watching. I've had a couple of people request that I show you my new storage way with all of my journaling stuff inside plastic pockets. I will endeavour to show you that again and maybe take you through what I've put in one of them. So look out for that video in the near future. Thanks for watching. Bye.